let's go into, I don't know if you've been picking up new stuff, Michael, because I know you don't really hit up the shops that much, but I know Kody reads a lot during New Comic Book Week. So you've provided me with your top 3. I've got my top 3. So who wants to go first?
Take it away, JJ. You're the host.
All right. Well, first off, this is in no particular order, but I've got Gargoyles #2 by Greg Weisman and George Combadeus. I'm sorry if I know I butchered that name. I apologize in advance. But if you grew up in the 90s watching this show, it basically picks up about 5 years after the end of the cartoon. So it's all the same characters. It's still in continuity. Everything has still happened. And it's just basically them picking up where we left off.
So I've never seen Gargoyles, so it's like a franchise that people talk about fondly. Like people love there's some real gargoyle heads out there.
It was
man.
not a very long-lived series. It only lasted a couple of seasons. I think maybe 3 or 4 seasons tops. And It was on like WB in the morning, like it was like super early in the morning when that show would come on. So you either loved it or didn't know about it.
Right.
I mean, 90s, I always think of Legend of the Gnome. Sorry. So Disney Afternoon was fire.
But for those of you who do know about Gargoyles, the main big bag, Xanatos, I believe is how you pronounce his name correctly, has basically kidnapped a newborn gargoyle. And now they are pretty much on a blood feud revenge quest to get this kid back.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's only an issue 2, so not a lot has happened yet, but it was nostalgia for me. I'm a sucker for it every time,
So JJ, is that series, is it like going to be a mini series or is it actually going to be an ongoing?
I believe right now it's set to be a mini series, but they have not ruled out if it's going to get picked back up again.
I got you. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a good pick. I mean, it's like all the nostalgia stuff coming back, right? Like I'm sure you guys mention it all the time, but like Darkwing Duck just came back.
Right? I was going to say that won't be the last thing. We'll wait for that one.
Oh, sorry. I don't.
You got a fan of Gilligan's Island? I mean, it's all about nostalgia these days. It's not.
Oh, 100%.
Nice. Yep.
So, all right, what are we going with first for you, Kody?
Oh, okay. Here we go. So, first one I want to talk about. We talked about it a little earlier. JJ's got the slide, but we got Action Comics 1051. So, I mean,
look at the size of the team on this book, first of all, before we get into it.
So
3
there's
writers,
an
3 artists.
Right. There's an explanation behind that, right? So everything leading up with the whole Superman side, right? So last year we had Action Comics, which was Superman off in space on War World fighting Mongol. Whole big epic tale. And it was like 18 issues long or something like that. Superman comes back to Earth. So John Kent takes over the Superman title while his dad's away. So that was Superman, Son of Kal-El. So that series is kind of being folded into a different series. Anyways, Action Comics 1051 is like the new, hey, this is what the Superman family is, and this is what it's going to be going forward. I thought it was such an incredible, just I guess like the vision of it. So we got 3 different kind of short stories in it. So like, sometimes you'll read a comic and it's got a backup story, right? Classic. So this is being treated as kind of 3 backup stories, but they're all their own. They don't feel like a backup story. And so going forward, each issue of Action Comics is going to be, 3 like slices of the Superman family. Different creative teams will be jumping on for each arc, I guess. I just think it's like a really good idea. I kind of want to see DC do this more with, there's some members of the Batman family that don't get a lot of love. Like, like Signal is a big one that everybody says, right? I think this kind of formula is really kind of smart. I mean, you get 3 stories in one. I guess it's $5, so that's kind of a lot, but it is like oversized. It's a little longer than your traditional comic book. But yeah, I think it's great because it's introducing me to a bunch of writers and artists that I wasn't aware of previously, and I think it's just a great idea all around. So yeah, Action Comics 1051. I think it's a great place to start if you're looking to get into kind of what's going on in the Superman side of DC.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's one I was planning on picking up because they're also coming up with Superman 1 again. Like, it looks like they're getting ready to restart a lot of the runs
Yeah,
for
for sure.
DC. So that's where I'm really planning on trying to keep up on stuff later on in the year for that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be maybe is there gonna be 3 Superman titles? And I don't know.
I know there's one
main
for John
Superman,
Kent, there's one
John
for
Kent.
Clark, and I think there's one for Supergirl coming, I want to say.
I can't remember. There's either 3 or 4
I think it's
Superman.
Tom Taylor or Tom King doing it, because I remember they were making fun of their friends on Twitter, calling their friends nerds for being excited about a new Supergirl run.
Oh, I got
Like,
you.
as like a, like nerds, like, but obviously he's the one writing the dang book. So
I think I remember that, actually. I think either you shared it or someone.
I forget who shared that, but I know I saw it.
Dude, plus I will say, I mean, you got Dan Mora on the cover. I think Dan Mora is like, he's the guy right now. I think he draws superheroes. No, he's untouchable right now, in my opinion. I think Dan Mora just kills it. So yeah, a lot of good stuff packed into a great issue. I'd recommend Action Comics 1051.
That's awesome. Well, and then I guess we will get into the one that everybody got excited about for a second real quick, and that is Darkwing Duck by Amanda Deibert and Carlo Loro. Have you guys read this?
Yeah, dangerous.
I mean, same thing.
Have you guys watched the show?
I'm more familiar. I've seen episodes of Darkwing Duck, whereas Gargoyles, I haven't seen anything from Gargoyles.
Love Darkwing Duck.
I was gonna say, I know Michael knows about some Darkwing Duck.
Yeah.
This is basically the TV show if it came out today.
That's awesome.
So, like, instead of him arguing with his daughter about, going to the arcade or something, he's arguing with her because she wants a cell phone.
Right. So just in a modern time, that's pretty smart. I mean, that's
like, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read it, but like, smartphones are kind of part of the whole plot of the first issue.
That's great. And for those who don't know, fill us in on who Darkwing Duck is.
Oh, he's Drake Maverick.
Yeah, but he's what? He's the nephew of no.
What's the relation?
No, that's he's related to Scrooge McDuck somehow.
I think he's he's a nephew or cousin or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But he's basically the cartoon duck equivalent of Batman.
Yeah.
Mixed with like the shadow and the spirit.
Right. Very old-timey feel. I definitely know that from the show for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, just his real name, Drake Maverick. Not only is it names for ducks, but
well, I remember I was gonna say, because DuckTales came out, and then Darkwing Duck was like a spinoff of DuckTales.
Yeah, because Tailspin is his helicopter pilit in Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, so good.
Oh my gosh,
it's MCU so before the MCU. They had it in like
yes, Disney had it first with all their because remember Tailspin had Baloo from Jungle Book. Was like one of the main characters. Like, there was so much crossover with WB and like Disney cartoons back then. It was insane.
So good.
The 90s were great, man. I miss it.
They really were a great time.
So I will say,
who posted? I follow a great follow on Instagram. It's Rob Liefeld, and so he posted. I think he was poking fun at himself too. And he's like, "What was all with all like the satchels, and everyone had pockets and bags and vests and stuff like that, like all the heroes." 90s was like a fun time, man.
It really was. Even though I was still really young in the 90s, I was born in 1990, but I could still remember vividly all the TV, all the clothes, like everything, dude. It was just I don't know. The 90s were awesome.
The muscles, just so unrealistic.
Well, so I don't know, Michael, have you seen the DC recently did a line of like 90s rewind covers, so like variant covers. So that might be something you're interested in, because one of them, it's like Batman and Superman standing next to each other, and the capes are just like so crazy. They're like filling
Todd McFarlane style like capes over the top.
Yeah, it's just like makes no sense. And they did another cover that was focused on the pouches, and it was just really funny to look at.
One of my favorite segments on YouTube is Mr. Sunday Movies. Is great, like great podcast. It's a great show. It has great segments, and he was doing. I think it was around the time when Dawn of Justice is coming out. He really was lobbying for the Superman to bring back the mullet that he had in the 90s. You guys with the wavy hair with the long mullet, and so it's just
Classic.
all
The black outfit with the
black
silver
suit,
S
right?
on the
Yep.
front.
Yep.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad Snyder brought that back. And then also, I mean, the first one to do it was the WB was the first one to do it with Tyler Hoechlin. That's another name I'm going to butcher. Hoechlin or Hoechlin or.
We apologize in advance for anybody's name we screw up.
Exactly. But he's actually a really cool actor. I'm a big fan. But yeah, I mean, but the mullet, man, the mullet was such a weird.
It was so bad, it was good.
You know what?
I remember a Superman action figure I got in like, I don't know, it was probably like a Burger King meal or something. And he was about that tall, and it was just the black skin tight Superman outfit, which was weird because it was black all the way down to his boots, just the silver Superman S, and then the black mullet, no cape. It was just like, I'm like, looking at it as as I'm older, I'm like, this was a little suggestive. Like, like just complete skin tight black leather.
And I think you have, like you brought up McFarlane, I think you have him and others to blame. Like, had they left for, I think they left for Image Comics. All right. So everyone was testing things out. And I think DC and Marvel are no different. You know, when they lost all their big guns, like it was just like a huge, and so everyone was just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what they could come up with, but it was awesome.
It made for some interesting things to read. That's for sure. So, all right, Kody, what was your next pick?
Yeah. So next pick I got, Batman One Bad Day Catwoman. So if you guys are not following, I guess, what's going on over at DC's been doing these Batman One Bad Days, where each one kind of focuses on a Batman villain. So, you know, they've had Penguin, Two-Face, you know, all the big hitter rogues from the Batman side of what's going on. And each one just kind of it's kind of taking the idea of like Killing Joke, right? Where, you know, you have that one bad day that makes you whatever. So each one has got a different creative team. So this one with Catwoman's got G. Willow Wilson is writing it, and I wasn't familiar with the artist, but I mean the art in this is absolutely killer. And I don't know, it's really kind of focuses on, so the series as a whole, the One Bad Day, some of them are a lot stronger than others, and that just goes, you know, that's just how it's going to be with different creative teams. But definitely the Catwoman one is stand out. Just getting into, you know, Catwoman's head and what makes her tick, and you know, like the kind of trauma that she had, you know, in her past, and what pushes her to be Catwoman in the future. So I thought it was a really good examination of Catwoman as a character. And I think the One Bad Days, the ones I would say that aren't as strong, maybe Penguin and Two-Face are the lower two. Everything else is like in the top tier of what DC's putting out. So if you're sleeping on One Bad Day, definitely got to go back and check it out.
Now, here's my one gripe with that series so far, is that because I haven't read them all, but I was gonna be waiting for like the hardcover. I was assuming they were gonna put these in a collected edition. They're releasing each of the comics singly as a hardcover.
I got you. And yeah, they're not that.
So they're releasing them all separately. They're not in a like collected edition or anything.
I have seen that they are doing like a box set, but it's going to be, you know, all of these lined up in a box set, so nothing too crazy. That's a little disappointing. I think it would. Yeah. It'd make a great, like, maybe somewhere down the line they collect it all into one.
Because I mean, how many are they doing? They've only got one or two more, right?
Yeah, I believe was it Clayface and then Ra's al Ghul still coming.
Okay, so yeah, that would be about the perfect size for like a good thick trade, you know.
I think the Ra's al Ghul one, Michael's from Tom King, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's doing the Clayface one. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean
G. Willow Wilson is no slouch. I mean, talk about a, you know, iconic writer, and to show you my age, I didn't even know she left Marvel. How old I am. And like I remember interviewing her for Inside Marvel years ago, and talking about, you know, when I think it was during, I think the Civil War II run. This is a while back. And so yeah, I mean, a little humor, but also, you know, great writer.
Yeah, she gets Catwoman especially. Like I think I think maybe it's Teeny Howard on the current Catwoman run. I haven't been keeping up with it, but I mean, if G. Willow Wilson, jumped onto the Catwoman book, I'd be picking that up for sure. 'Cause I think she really gets the character. So yeah, that's my number 2. Definitely think it's worth a pickup.
Nice. All right, so you guys know I couldn't do a top 3 list without throwing something indie as hell in there. So my third pick is called Grim Space from Scout Comics. Dude, this is
I like
one
the
of
cover.
this is one of the most interesting things I've read in a while. So basically, we all know the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, right? He gets magic beans. He goes and he's supposed to sell the cow for money. Instead, he gets the beans, throw them outside. Beanstalk grows, giant gold egg. We all know that story. This is basically the exact same story, except in space. So instead of trading a cow for beans, he trades a broken robot that he's been trying to fix for a navigation unit. And the navigation unit gives him all these sectors of space that were technically unexplored, but all of a sudden he's got maps to them. And him and his family are like junk traders and bounty hunters.
It sounds like a mix of like Star Wars.
It is almost, but it's so funny because they do encounter a giant off rip. They encounter their ship is called the Beanstalk. All the characters have the like fairy tale names like of those kind of stories. Like there's Jack, obviously. There's hang on, let me open this up so I can actually.
And I mean, did we all notice that they 100% ripped off the bad guy from Mortal Kombat on the cover with the 4 arms and like?
Listen, yeah, it's a cool character design. If you're gonna steal something, I would steal from what's his name? It starts with a G, right? Like
right. So like
Gorgo
this is the
something.
first thing that the navigation unit takes them to is another ship.
Right.
So it's dude, this thing is insane. The artwork in it is nuts.
A little bit of aliens feel in there. It's like I mean, this must be like written by and produced and created by a big fan of fandoms, from
right. But see, like right there's the giant and there's his golden eggs. I mean, it's the same story, just set in space, basically. And instead of a giant beanstalk, their ship is the beanstalk, and this navigation unit is the magic beans.
No, that's pretty smart. I love when they take creative people, right? So not me necessarily, but they can take like a classic. I'm not a comic writer, I guess is what I was trying to say. But yeah, taking like classic story that we all know and putting their own spin to it. I mean, JJ, you were just reading Fables, right? Like same kind of thing where it's just a different take on these stories that we already know and love. And it sounds like the way JJ is describing it. I mean, it sounds like they actually succeeded in making it compelling.
Oh yeah, it's actually like I pick up usually if I don't like issue 1, I'm not going to read anything else past that. This one I subscribe to on my pull list. So if that tells you anything,
that's awesome. I mean, and it had you stumped. Like the only thing you said was like, dude.
Like it's so hard to describe to people, but it's basically Jack and the Beanstalk set in space. Replace the beans with a navigation unit, and the Beanstalk is actually the ship. Like,
yeah. I mean, who owns the IP to Jack and the Beanstalk?
I think it's I believe it's public domain at this point.
I would hope so, but I mean, maybe there's some things that surprise you how they're not public domain yet, but
either yet or they've just been repurchased over the years, so they haven't had a chance to go public. So, okay, we're on to your last pick here, Kody, and this is one I've actually enjoyed a lot too so far. It almost made this list for me, so I'm glad I didn't pick it, or else we would have had a problem. But that is Black Cloak #1.
Nice. I like how you put the Peach Momoko cover because that's the one I got as well.
Yeah, that was the cover I bought.
Yeah, I had to go with the Peach cover as well. It's probably the best cover in my opinion. No, so I mean, Black Cloak is it definitely surprised me for sure. The hype around it. I think this is on Kelly Thompson's Substack, if I'm not mistaken. Image is doing the physical release of it. But people who have read it on Substack or whatever, I think most of it's out or all of it's out. I can't remember, but they've said, listen, guys, this series is one to look out for. so I had to make sure to pick it up when Image started publishing it. So it follows this girl, JJ. I can't remember her name. Maybe it doesn't matter, but so her role is Black Coat. So essentially, she's a detective in this kind of like this sci-fi fantasy world. It's not really clear if it like there was like a war. There's like a lot of lore, a lot of world building. There was a war that happened some time ago.
It's a pretty thick book too.
Yeah, I mean it's good quality too because how much is it? It's $5. Never mind. I was gonna say classic comic price.
But
like
Image
like
charges less
cardstock
for
in
their
your
stuff
hand.
anyway.
Yeah,
Though.
it's cardstock, Michael. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely higher quality than what some publishers are putting out.
Yeah, I mean that's just like the one I just showed you guys, Grimspace. That quality is insane, and it's an indie publisher.
So I guess like the hook to this story. So there's been some murders of some of the royalty in this world, and she herself, she is an exiled. I guess maybe we don't know what happened to cause her to be exiled, but now she's essentially a detective investigating these murders. One of them happens to be like a good childhood friend, maybe even a past lover. I guess that maybe they're kind of hinting at it, and it's just like this. I don't know if JJ, what do you think about the art, like in particular? Because so to me, I'll show you an example here, Michael, so you can see it. But it's kind of like I don't know how to describe it. I've heard some people negatively call it like a webtoon kind of art, and I don't know if that's accurate. I don't really read, I guess, webtoons, but
and see, here's my issue with that because a lot of the webtoon stuff I've seen, it's not that it's bad quality artwork. It's that it's very
like, yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Like it's stylized, right?
I don't want to say amateurish, but it's not done usually by people who've been drawing for 30, 40, 50 years.
Right, like exactly. You're not going in like it's not super detailed. I mean, the environments are, but the characters themselves, I mean, they have, great character designs, and it's very cartoony. It's got a style to it, right? Like it's not going to be your traditional comic book where everybody's, looking lifelike. But just the world building on top of, I guess, kind of the hook of, she's investigating these murders and we're going to see it play out. And, like why is she exiled and that sort of thing. I think this is a great first issue. This is definitely my favorite first issue in a while. Image always does, incredibly good stuff. But like I said, this was on Substack before. So yeah, I would recommend Black Cloak. Maybe if you're at at your LCS, you flip through it and see if the art is, see if it is or isn't your thing. That was my only thing reading it was it took me a little bit to kind of get adjusted and acclimated to this kind of art. It's not traditionally what I would go for, but like I was saying, Kelly Thompson's writing, all the characters are, you can tell that they're characters you're going to end up loving. It can be funny at times. Yeah, I just thought it was a standout first issue. So definitely don't sleep on Black Cloak. Make sure the art is something, you'd be down to read a bunch of issues for. And I guess the last thing I'll say about it is people are comparing this to Saga, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I have seen that a lot. People are saying that this is Saga rebuilt, is what the quote I keep seeing.
Right, like it's got it's this huge world that it just plops you into, and you're kind of figuring it out as you go. I definitely get Saga vibes. I mean, it helps that it's sci-fi as well. But yeah, I would say check out Black Cloak.